Are you looking for some effective, quick and easy ways to create captivating titles for your podcast episode? Well, stick around because by the end of this episode, you'll have all the skills you need to create some really captivating titles for your podcast. Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is Alec Hassan here with my shiny forehead, and I'm here with Impact Podcaster Academy. This is the place that you go if you want to create more impact and income with your podcast without having to worry about going viral or getting sponsors or anything like that. So in this episode, I was talking with one of my buddies, Jody, online on Facebook. He had reached out and he was like, hey man, could you take a look at some of my episodes? I just want some feedback, just some pointers and stuff. Anything that comes to mind, just let me know of how I can improve my show. And I was like, of course, man, I'll help you out. And I immediately clicked on his show. And by the way, I've listened to his stuff before. He's a great conversationalist. And I'd recommend checking out a show called Chit and Chat, Encouraging One Another. I'm pretty sure you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, things like that. But anyway, so when I had clicked onto his podcast, first thing I noticed was that all of the episode titles were just people's names. So I saw Brett O'Ryan, Dana Sampson, Stacey Wong. I'm like, I don't know these names, I'm just making these names up. But it's like I saw those names, and probably just in this example, you heard that name and you're like, okay, I don't know who these people are. Why should I be interested? And when it comes to creating like titles for your podcast, it's super important that they are captivating, that they create curiosity. If you can throw in some urgency there too, that's really good, because when it comes to people consuming content online, 80% of the reason why someone's going to click on something is because of the title itself. So a lot of people, they will look at content, they'll even share content and not even view it, but they'll share it just because they liked the title. I'm sure you have seen this on Facebook where people will share like articles and things, and 9 times out of 10, or I guess 8 times out of 10, they didn't even read the article. And a lot of people were actually doing this funny thing where they'll write a title and they'll say something where it's like something like politically triggered or something like that. And I don't want to get into like politics or anything like that, but like, let's say it was something where it's like Trump waves his hand and there's poop on it as he's waving to the crowd, and Joe Biden is talking into a microphone with boogers hanging out, and someone will share it. And then if you click on the article and you read it, it's like, hey, thanks for clicking on this article. I'd just like to point out that the title was totally false. In fact, the person that shared it did not even read this article. And the reason why I know this is because this is all fake. This is all false. And all the people commenting on this, talking about this and that, I just want to let you know that they are wrong and they are not informed. And I was like, wow, that was a very creative way of handling that. But anyway, this just goes to show how important the title is. So people, it might not be that they're not listening to your show because they don't like the content or anything like that. They might not be listening because the title isn't captivating. So here I want to give you some big tips for how you can improve your titles. And I actually have some resources that you can download as well that will make the title making process super easy, barely an inconvenience. So one of the first things that you need to realize before you even make the title, and way before you even make the episode, like I always say, before you record your episode, you should first create the title, because it goes back to saying like if the title's captivating, people are going to listen to the content. So if you create your content before you make the title, then you're kind of stuck with like, okay, well, how do I make a title based on the content? But if you do the content first, then you can make the content based off of the title. But before you do that, before you do any of this, you need to understand who it is that you're trying to make this content for. If it's someone who's just going to purely come in for like entertainment purposes, then you might not do a how-to title, or you might not do the best methods for X, Y, and Z. Like if they're coming in for entertainment, then you need like big buzzwords, you need like kooky things or wacky things or whatever. Think of like magazine covers that are of like People magazine, or like the ones that have like the celebrities and stuff. It's just showing the celebrities. It's like they just come up with like really crazy kooky things. And I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but like who you're making the content for is very much going to determine the type of title that you're going to do. Even the specificity of the title. So if I were to say best method for getting more downloads on your podcast, it's kind of broad, it's kind of general. Pretty much any podcaster could benefit from that. But if I were to say like top methods or top 2 methods to increase conversions for your podcast lead magnet, like that's a totally different podcaster. That's someone who's got a website, that's someone who knows what conversion and knows what lead magnets are. It's someone that's probably got like an email sequence. It's someone like they know these terms. But if I were to say like just increase your downloads, that's like very broad, very generalized. It's kind of like with fitness. If someone were to say like top 5 methods of losing stubborn belly fat, that's one thing. But if you were to say like the top 5 foods that put your body in ketosis in order to get a better energy output, or something like that. But like, I'm using the term like ketosis, ketogenic. These are like buzzwords that attract a very specific type of person. Or even like if I were to use the term fasting, like, or the term macros. Those are all things where it's like it begins to further weed out. Like for someone to want to lose weight, anyone can have that thought. But no one just wakes up in the morning and they're like, man, I really want to know how I can just put my body into ketosis and track my macros. It's like, you don't start off with that type of like vocabulary. That involves you doing some research. So the main thing that I'm trying to get at there is, where's your person at? Where's your audience at in their journey? Because if you can make it specific, but you got to know it's going to attract that specific type of person. But now, now that I've sort of gotten that a little bit out of the way, now we can actually dive into the tips of writing better headlines. And the first thing that you really should do is, anytime you see a headline, anytime you see something online in general that causes you to stop what you're doing and look at it, you gotta screenshot that. You gotta save it. You gotta ask yourself, why did I just stop? Why did I read that specific thing? Because if it worked for you, it's likely gonna work for other people. And that's just like, as times change, as things adapt, as stuff is moving and going on, the things I'm trying to give you here are things that should work no matter what the trends are. But the top thing you can do to better equip yourself is to gather as many headlines, as many titles, as many things that causes you to stop scrolling and to start looking at what they're doing, because that means they did something that works. But I do have here some awesome shortcuts that you can implement and use these immediately. And the thing that's really cool is you're going to see that like once you start using some good headlines, you're going to be getting people to stop what they're doing and they're going to listen to your show. So one of the best things that you could do is just use templates for your headlines. So you could do how to XYZ, how to do blank in as little as blank, and then you put a time frame on there. How to do this without that, or how to do this even if you something that they. So it's like, for example, how to start your podcast in as little as 2 hours, even if you don't even know how to connect a microphone. Like, oh, that's pretty, that's, but if I were to just say like how to start your podcast, it kind of works. Like it's going to tell you how to start it, but that versus how to start your podcast in as little as 2 hours, it's like, wow, that's really fast. Then if someone's thinking like, well, man, it's probably going to be very complicated. I don't even know how to plug in a microphone. And then it's like, how to start your podcast in as little as 2 hours, even if you don't know how to plug in a microphone. And the person's like, wow, this is fantastic. I'm going to click on that. So you see, or you can say like how every blank, which would be like your audience, can get results. So it's like how every podcaster can increase their downloads, how every man in the gym can increase their biceps by 2 inches. You see how that works? Another great method is to use numbers. So you could say like the number 1 way to blank, the 5 fastest methods to blank, the 3 quick and easy ways to do this and avoid negative outcome. So like the 3 fastest ways to lose weight and avoid feeling hungry all the time, or like the 3 fastest ways to post more content online and avoid feeling social media burnout, something like that. You see, like these are just templates that you can use, but it's to get like the ball rolling, to get the thoughts, the creative juices flowing. You could even, that was like focused on benefits. You could also focus on like the negative side of things too. So you could say like the 3 mistakes all blank needs to avoid. So it's like the 3 mistakes all beginner podcasters need to avoid. The 3 mistakes all female weightlifters need to avoid. It's like, whoa, like, it's kind of vague, but it creates some curiosity, gets someone that wants to click. They're like, wait, the 3 mistakes, what if I'm doing those mistakes? I want to avoid those mistakes. Or you could say like the 2 mistakes that every blank needs to avoid. So it's like, that one's like really good because it's like specifically calling out your ideal audience. So if I were to say like how to create captivating titles, or just like, yeah, how to create more captivating titles. It's like kind of vague, but if I were to say how to create more captivating podcast episode titles, now it's more specific. Or I could say like the 3 mistakes every podcaster needs to avoid. It's like now I'm calling podcasters out. You kind of see how that works there. Another thing that works well is like you could ask people questions. Like you can have it phrased as a question like, do you want to increase your biceps by 2 inches? It's like, well, yes, I do. Or like, do you want to increase your podcast downloads? And it's like, oh yeah, I do. Like that's something that works really well. It's basically like whatever the question the person has, you can ask that back to them. So someone's like, how to start a podcast. The title could be, do you want to start a thriving podcast? And it's like, oh yeah, and you click that. And a thing that's really cool that can really help you out with making these titles super fast, super easy, barely an inconvenience, is to check out the link that I have in the description. In fact, I'll pull up a little video here of what you're going to see when you click on it. So right here, I've actually created, well, it says 42 Instagram post templates plus 101 content ideas. So this 101 content ideas is the thing that you mainly would want to be focusing on. When you go on this page is what it's going to show you. There's like a little video here. You can click it, show you how to use the templates. I include both of these things that will allow you to make titles and make some Instagram posts in a very quick and easy way. So when you click on that link and then you go and purchase these templates for yourself, this is what it's going to look like. 101 captivating content, titles, and ideas. And I include here like a little explanation of how you can use this worksheet for yourself. But you can see here that these are all just really simple plug and play stuff. Like for example, this one, you can just look at a title and just make it your own. No more mistakes with crafting podcast titles in seconds. How to make your, instead of product, you could say podcast, stand out with captivating titles. Or just like how to make your biceps 2 inches larger without needing to work out even more. It's like, oh, wow. And, and I'm just pulling from these examples right here. So this is just like 15, cracking the bicep building code. It's like, whoa, that sounds pretty cool. And it's just like, it keeps going down and down, and you can just see like, so there's 101 of these. All you got to do is you just scroll to a random one and you just read through it. And anything that stands out to you, you're like, oh, wait, that made me pause for a second. Let me see if I can use that for my own title. Because I don't know if you recall in the beginning of the video, but I was saying one of the best things you can do is you will be going online, and anything that causes you to stop, you actually stop, and then look at that title, look at that piece of content, and ask yourself, like, why did it make me stop? And how can I turn that into something that I can then create content out of as well? And that's what this is. This is 101 different little moments that will potentially cause you to stop in your tracks and say, wait a second, that sounds really good. I'm going to use that. So if I'm just going to read through here. So here we go. 22 tips to start building a podcast you always wanted. Or 22 tips to start building a money-making podcast you always wanted. 22 22 tips to start building your biceps so they're the size you always wanted, or something like that. Calves, 22 tips to start. Yeah, anyway, you see where I'm going there? So as you're like scrolling through, these are going to give you some like really, really good ideas for titles that you can make for your own podcast and stuff like that. So hopefully this episode gave you a good little, like, I guess like surfacey level introduction for how you can create some great hooks and titles for your podcast. And if you found this information useful, make sure to subscribe and share this with anyone who you think would benefit from this information. So thank you so much for listening. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.